Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, I've got a really cool video. Today, we are looking at Bystials. This is the new archetype coming out in Darkwing Blast. Like, literally today, it officially dropped, or tomorrow. I don't know which one technically is the right day, but it's pretty much out. It's a crazy new archetype. They are all essentially DD Crows on crack, and I'm going to be honest, these cards kill a lot of decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! And they hurt a lot more. So, I have a little kind of tier list, little dissection video looking at a bunch of rogue-ish or higher level decks and how they kind of fare versus Bystial. Mostly stuff that is somewhat negatively affected by Bystials, but there are some weird ones and cool interactions I wanted to highlight as well. It's really cool. If you don't know how the Bystials work, they're all, they let you target a light or dark monster in either graveyard, banish them to special summon them. If your opponent controls a monster, those are just quick effects. So they're DD Crows, but they're DD Crows for only light and dark monsters. So that's why there are certain matchups that don't care at all about it, and there are certain matchups that like really get hurt, especially since light and dark, let's face it guys, are literally the most common attributes in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! On top of that, you get like a 2500 body. They also have like bonus effects like Magnamut searching any dragon in the entire game after that for follow-up. Really strong. So let's get into it. So, starting off here, I will note there's one thing missing from here. The picture didn't upload. It is Light Sworns. I would put Light Sworns in, like, annoying for sure. I don't know if it necessarily kills it, especially since the most recent Light Sworn variant that I've seen that's been, like, any kind of competitively relevant has been, like, a runic variant that's done fairly okay at, like, regional events, which is cool. I think it's annoying for some of the, like, stuff. But that build doesn't really care at all. More like pure Light Sworn stuff where you're actually trying to mill stuff and use Illumina to revive stuff. That's where it gets hurt way more by this. So I'd put it annoying for sure. I don't know if it necessarily gets butt demolished, but yeah. Okay, Dragon Link. This is the first one. This is honestly weird because this is one of those really weird ones where Dragon Link has really good synergy with Bystial. So it almost assuredly will play probably a full package with Lubellion and everything. That being said, this is still a deck that, like, when you actually try to play, like, the Dragon Link side of things, actually does get hit kind of hard by the Bystials themselves. So I don't think it's 100%, like, full game, because now there's just a lot of decks going to be playing, like, a hand trap that's also just already good versus your deck. So the deck gets a boost, but it also, versus the metagame, is kind of hurt a little bit harder now. So kind of weird, right? Next up, Dark Worlds. I'm going to put annoying for sure because this deck seems to have like a crazy amount of extension, but man, it definitely hurts, especially when you have a card like Grapha where the whole point of the deck is like get Grapha Engrave and be able to like abuse it not being once per turn and just revive it like time after time, but you're probably going to play more than one Grapha, so if you can get another copy engraved, you're fine. If you can get the new guy engraved, you're fine. You're going to have ways to extend, so it can be annoying for sure, but not necessarily excuse me, a butt demolishing. Infernity, butt demolished, absolutely butt demolished, which is kind of funny because I heard some rumblings from some players that had said Infernity might be kind of crazy coming up, but I do think the Bystials coming out, those are insanely powerful hand traps versus this deck that wants to like loop the same cards out of grave, kind of like Dark World. So if you hit the one copy that they need to loop multiple times, you kind of cut them off from being able to do that. So yeah, it gets absolutely butt demolished, but keep an eye on this. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some combos, and this is actually a competent combo deck coming into future formats for sure. Next up, we have a specific interaction. This is Ibli. This is a card that has actually seen a little bit of play in Sprite builds, and it's really interesting. You give it to your opponent, you lock them out of summoning anything but Link monsters. So if they are not on a like generic Link deck, it does make it hard to clear this card and really annoying and make you kind of just locked under the card you have on your field, which is cool, but it is I think it's a dark. Yeah, it's a dark. And it's a dark, so it's triggering in your opponent's grave, in which case you can chain one of the Bystials to just go ahead and banish it, so you do not have to get it to your field. And yeah, so this would be one of the strongest interactions versus your deck if you don't play a generic Link deck, and you could kind of just negate it entirely by using one Bystial, so pretty cool. Next up is Lunalights. They're annoying for sure, especially since Lunalight tier is the most common thing you've seen Lunalight in the last couple of years. So to be honest, I'd rather be using a Bystial on a tier fusion more so than a Lunalight effect engrave. But still, it does still hit them pretty well. Math mechs are tough, man. I'm going to put them in butt demolished. If you only open just like circular and no extender, one interruption kills you anyway, obviously. But even if you have one more, like you've already had to use your extender, and they're going to have a Bystial on field that is probably, like if it's Magnum at the most common one, they're searching another one to even help break into your board next turn as well. I think it's quite crazy. They also don't put a ton of really big monsters on the field. They put like medium level monsters, so they can definitely overpower you in the battle phase. I think it's pretty brutal. I honestly think it's really tough for the Math Mech matchup. I think they get significantly worse here coming into the new format. Next one is Mech Knights. This is another weird one, but I will say this. Mech Knights are a weird deck. They are not an OTK deck like a lot of people may think. They're actually more of like a go second, break into a board, kind of like Sky Striker, and then take control. It's more of a like go second control deck, if anything. And one of the best cards for them is World Legacy Secrets, which is the trap that just reborns a level 5 or higher monster and then negates anything that monster is in the same column as. And so the Bystials being able to like chain to you targeting a Mech Knight to get that negate is actually quite insanely strong, because they have to have another way to put not only a Mech Knight on the field, but in the right position as a quick effect. And that can even potentially cut them off from any like interruption whatsoever. So pretty tough, but not entirely dead. Not entirely like butt demolishing them overall. Orcus is entirely butt demolished by this. Unless they get like Harp Horror to like multiples, I don't see this deck being able to like beat Bystials. Bystials are just crazy into this deck. They don't have enough to play through it. Ogdoadic, I personally love this deck, but unfortunately they are butt demolished as well. One of the things you could hang your hat on before was just like not a lot of cards interacted too insanely well with Ogdoadic when you're doing a lot of your most important effects in grave. And so you could get to a decent place before they even really had anything to respond with. But to be honest, like Bystials are brutal into this deck. They're absolutely butt demolished. Invoked, butt demolished. If you have, in most scenarios, you're going to have Alistair in grave. You're going to activate Invocation. And if you just chain a Bystial and banish the Alistair, they now just straight up like most likely can't resolve the Invocation. I mean, to be fair, the Alistair will be banished, so they would be able to get the effect to get recursion. But as far as actually getting interruption, they better have like a really good hand that's letting them play through that, or have like another Alistair in hand or something, because otherwise they're just not even resolving the fusion summon and just not getting anywhere for it. And it's an entire tempo changer. I think it's really brutal. Maybe if you're combining it with something else that like, you know, and this is just baiting, but if this is a crucial part of your deck, it's really bad. Teller Knights, I know Teller Knights aren't great, but they get butt demolished by this as well. You need Altair turn after turn to be able to grind in this deck, and if they just have a response like a Bystial, you're screwed. By the way, Konami, this is another reason to just give Teller Knights a really good wave of support, because now they're even worse. They were already unplayable, and they're even worse now because Bystials are in the game. Come on. Sky Strikers, going into annoying for sure. It doesn't completely kill the deck, but one of the best parts of the deck as a control deck is Ray and Grave. How annoying it is to actually break through a Ray, because you just can't deal with their what they have in the extra monster zone, because Ray just keeps coming back. But now that you have a pretty much one Bystial single-handedly puts like a ton of pressure on them, because they lose the Ray, which means you also get a 2,500 body, and now you threaten to just walk over whatever monster they had in the EMZ. They can't float anymore, and you threaten to potentially cut them off of getting into another X-Check monster next turn entirely. So really, really scary for them. Sprites, same thing. I don't think it entirely kills Sprites. Not same thing, but it's different for Sprites. What's funny for Sprites, more so than like any other thing here, Sprites actually don't care about the interruption. They don't care about the DD Crow effect. What they care about is that your opponent's just get their opponent's just going to get a 2,500 beater with a bonus effect. Because this deck does not summon big monsters. You definitely get threatened with just battle phase, walk over your shit, and it's really scary. So yeah, I think Sprites definitely get hurt here. Tier Elements, again, doesn't kill them because the deck is just so good. If they have enough extension, they're going to get more mills. They're going to get more triggers. So one Bystial does not kill them. You might need multiple. So that's enough for me to say annoying for sure, but doesn't entirely kill them. But it is very good. It does just pretty much entirely make the fusion effects fizzle from tiers, but if they can just get another one sent, they'll be all right. Phantom Knights, I would say annoying for sure as well. Not completely dead, but for sure, especially if you know Phantom Knights and you know the best choke points to hit something in Grave, that can be very crucial at slowing down this deck down. Unchained, same thing. It's very annoying for Unchained, but it doesn't straight up kill them outright. They do some stuff in Grave. The fact that Drew's Worm sends is annoying for them because it doesn't float their stuff. But they are big, and if they have to go battle phase, you're going to float. So there are ways to make it work at the end of the day. Heroes, again, another just annoying one. Let me move my fat head. Yeah, I think Heroes is fine. It's just because like they kind of like to turbo out DPE, so just having inherent ways to handle DPE without having to throw a ton of resources at him is pretty nice at the end of the day. So that's really good. And then the rest of their board may be like super handleable once you can clear him. Next up, Bystial. How is Bystial versus Bystial? Well, if you're just playing the splashable part of Bystial, it actually doesn't do anything. But if you play Lubellion and the full package, because Lubellion's technically the best starter for them going first, but a lot of people are just going to play them as like essentially hand trap small package, right? So if you play the full package, hitting Lubellion and Grave is actually quite good because Lubellion tributes a monster, so they lose a monster on field. They lose this guy. They don't get Lubellion to the field, and Lubellion was going to get another free branded card. So you're kind of trading a 1 for 3 in that scenario. It's actually quite good against like a full package. So if you play a full package, you kind of don't want to see other Bystial players, to be honest. Tenny is another like annoying for sure lineup one here. They don't entirely lose to it, but hitting stuff like an Ashina and Grave, this would be like more so Tenny. Sword Soul, and like the Sword Soul stuff doesn't really lose to this, but Ashina and Vishuddha and Grave can definitely not appreciate them the most. So it definitely gives them a way to like kind of play into your board immediately, and we know those boards aren't like the craziest things in the world anyway, so there's definitely some threat there. Artifact Scythe. This goes into another specific interaction one that's kind of funny, but if you're playing like a Scythe combo where you're setting it off of Dagda and then popping it on the opponent's turn, it goes to Grave and then triggers in Grave. That gives you an opportunity to Bystial, and this is a light, so yeah, they kind of play into an Artifact Scythe setup pretty well. I mean, if you have a Scythe setup plus a negate, you know, some people would argue if you don't have Scythe plus a negate, it's not even worth playing a Scythe deck, but you know, depends. If you resolve it, you resolve it, but it won't resolve that much this format because of the Bystials. So, next up, Burning Abyss. This deck is absolutely butt demolished by Bystials, unfortunately. This deck's already not that great anymore in the TCG. I think it's like a fine little, like, you know, trap control deck, but, man, the strongest thing this deck does is just loop resources, and they can just pretty much cut you off entirely with, like, one Bystial and put you in a really awkward position. So it's pretty brutal. DDDs are weird. I don't know enough about DDDs. I'll put them annoying for sure, but they could be butt demolished here. Necroslime is huge. This card banishes itself to just fuse from Grave. So if they just preemptively banish this guy once he hits the Grave, you're in a tough spot. They also have Lamia, which sometimes is a super important extender for them. I think they don't love it. I think it's at least annoying for sure. They could be dead though, because I think from what I've seen with DDD players, they have to go for the fusion like often. Like that's a very crucial part of their play. So we'll see. Next up we have Herald. Herald goes in specific interactions. This is more so a specific sprite thing that we'll probably see a little more often now that we have Sprind around, because Sprind or Gigantic can get them access to the Herald straight from deck to either go to Grave or to the field. And what they'll do is they'll get it in Grave just so that if they end on an elf, this is a way that they can reborn something and immediately offer interruption with it, because you just play one Intus and the extra, send the Intus to pop something on the opponent's turn. Adds a really nice piece of interaction that sprites don't generally have, like quick removal. So this card we could see just makes the Bystials not only like just already big and threatening to sprites, but also be able to handle an interruption at the same time is really good. Zombies are butt demolished. I'm sorry. Hate to say it, but especially if you're a pure zombie player, like Zombie World, man, you just straight up lose to getting like your Ballardrock banished on standby. Holy crap, it's brutal. Drytron, butt demolished. This deck was arguably like tier 2 recently, and now it's like rogue at best. But like, man, you get demolished a lot. This deck would like lose to DD Crows sometimes. Like if it was an okay hand, you could just lose to one DD Crow. Now you're facing a DD Crow that's also a Chungus, and it's probably searching another one. So good luck. Eldritch. I think Eldritch is butt demolished. I mean maybe they'll play enough floodgates, maybe enough trap cards can help them overcome this, but like, how do you just lose in Eldritch? You get both your Eldritches banished. Okay. That's what Bystials specialize in, so yeah, it's pretty brutal. And the last one here is Albaz / Despia stuff. I will say there are a lot of Despia lines where they go like, whatever it is, Branded Fusion, send Albaz and whatever other material to go into either the Lubellion or the other one, can't remember the other one's name, to do a fusion again into a higher, like that's how they go a lot of their lines. When they do that, if you chain and banish the Albaz, they have to fuse into something way more awkward, which is kind of funny. So you can potentially lock them out of their best extra deck monsters and already load yourself up with a 2500 beater in some other form of value and apply the pressure from there. So yeah, it's definitely kind of annoying for them. Although, to be fair, this is one of those decks that maybe fits more here because I've had a lot of people asking me about how is Despia Bystial? And I've been like, I think it works. You set it up pretty easily yourself. Yeah, I think it could work. So yeah, there are some cool interactions there as well. So I'll put it here because there are going to be some people who play it and it does get quote unquote better because of that, but then also doesn't love playing against it. So kind of a weird matchup there. But yeah, that's everything I have here. These were the most relevant decks to me that like were questioning, like we're going to be affected by Bystials in some way, shape, or form. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Bystials are such an interesting topic. Same thing with Kashtira, just because, you know, they come in, they're super generic. Anybody can play them, and especially the Bystials are super budget too if you don't need to play Lubellion. And man, if you're playing, like I feel bad for the invoked players, the Drytron players, the zombie players, the Eldritch players, all these players that were playing like more rogue stuff that just got even worse. You were already a rogue deck trying to compete with Tyr and Sprite right now, but now your decks like get demolished by these new generic cards. So it's tough, but yeah, that's everything I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below on the list here, maybe a couple of other options that I excluded and how they interact with the new Bystial cards. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that stuff down below, but I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you have not yet, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.